Welcome to lesson 17 of the exact process for setting up Google Analytics with the quantified web. Now, to get this lesson, you will want to go to the quantifiedweb.com exactGA and type in your email address and then click Get Started Today. Now, we are quite a few lessons in, so we want to scroll all the way down, and today we are going to do where is it? Create standard goals. That's what we're about to do. So we click on here's how to do it. Here we go. Please read this important note. Now, I was actually talking about this in the last lesson. So we prefer goals that are triggered by someone actually doing something on the website. So think about goals as tracking whether someone achieved what you had set out for them. So if you want them to subscribe for a newsletter, then you want to be tracking, did they achieve your goal of subscribing for a newsletter? If you want them to add to the cart, you want that to be a goal. If you want them to search for something, then you want that as a goal. But all of these things where you're doing something, they are completely customized. Actually, no, I didn't go through this in the last lesson. I was talking about events. But they are completely customized to your website because your website is different from someone else's website, both in terms of its intent, but also in terms of its setup. So part of what my business does is I will look at your website and I will go through and say, right, well, these buttons need to be set up as goals. This cart needs to be set up. This is how we do it. And then I will set all of that up so that you do have accurate goals. But when you set up Google Analytics for the first time, you don't have any goals in there. It's just blank by default. So as part of this standard setup, my team and I don't set up the goals other than we have two standard goals, which are based on how many pages people look at and how long they spend on your website. We don't set up any of these behavior goals in this initial setup because we actually work out a data strategy plan, work out what kinds of goals we actually need across the website, and then we customize that as part of an analytics project. So just to make that understood, that we're not going to go through in this step the setting up of all of the goals, and in fact, this isn't going to be the most useful goals, but we are at least getting something in there because Google Analytics doesn't work very well if you don't have any goals at all. All of the metrics relating to conversion rate do need to check whether people achieved a goal or not. So at the very minimum, you want to have goals relating to how long someone spent on your website or how many pages they looked at so that you can see what is the conversion rate of people coming to your website from being a brand new person that is or is not interested in your website to someone who's actually engaged and spending time. So definitely the best thing that you can have is different goals for all the different conversions you have on your website. We've got major conversions and then we've got micro conversions, which are the small steps that you want them to take. But at the very minimum, you want to check whether they are engaging on your website or not so that your conversion rates are at least reporting on something. Otherwise, your conversion rates will be showing 0 throughout all of Google Analytics, and it might not be able to even display that column at all because you don't have any goals. All right, so now I've just got a note in here as well. If you already have all of these behavior goals, then you might not want to set up these standard ones because you might be running out of space. So Google Analytics allows 20 goals per view. Now, if you had a ginormous website that had a lot of things we wanted to track, what we might end up doing is setting up more than one reporting view so that you could have 20 goals per reporting view. We could just duplicate the same reporting view and have another 20 goals. But generally, I mean, that adds complexity because then you have to work out which view your goal is in. So generally you want to have less than 20 goals. If you've already got lots of goals and you're already up to 19, 20 goals, then don't worry about setting up these basic ones because you've already got goals in there. If you do have some goals in there that are old though and they're not working anymore, then feel free to either disable them or you convert those goals into these ones. You can both rename them and you can change the settings. Just keep in mind that if they were active and they were tracking goals, then suddenly changing it means that if you try and look back historically, it will show you data for the previous goal because the goal ID is like a slot in Google Analytics. And if you ask, how many did I get in this slot, it will show you how many people completed the goal or how many sessions there were when that goal was completed, irrespective of what the settings were for that goal. So to recap on that, it's best to add it into a new slot if you can, but if you're full, then either skip this lesson or replace one that is old and maybe not working anymore. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so the first thing we want to do is go to admin and now I always do it in the filter data no params first. So I haven't actually mentioned that in here, but that's where I recommend. And we open the goals in admin panel. Yep. So I'm actually already in there, but I'll just walk through how to get there. So we go to admin and then click on goals and then we find our goals. Now, in this case, I did tell you that I had just, in the previous lesson, I told you that I'd completely made these goals up. This client didn't actually have any goals. So I'm going to override these goals with the two new ones that we're going through here. But in your case, if you have goals already, don't override them, just create new ones. Alrighty. So you will want to click this new goal button and you'll get to here. And then you will want to click on custom and then click continue. All right. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go back. I'm just going to edit the one that I already set up because this one isn't good. All right. So now, if I go back to here, then I'm at the same page as where you are. All right, so we've got custom, continue. Then it'll take you to this page and we want to enter visit greater than 1 minute in the name box. So this is going to let us know what percentage of our users stayed for longer than a minute. Now you can have a different time in there if you would like. But I tend to have this one as a default because if someone is really not interested, you will definitely know they're not going to stay for a minute. Once they've been there for longer than a minute, then it shows that they're definitely engaged to some degree. Alrighty, so in this one, we want to choose destination. Sorry, no, we don't. We want to choose duration. Things starting with D and then click continue. Alrighty, so this is a duration one. So we're going to set a duration to greater than 1 minute. Alrighty. Now don't worry about the value for this engagement goal. Value is useful when you have some goals that lead to monetary return, but someone spending more than a minute on your website is unlikely to lead directly to monetary value. So don't worry about that. All right, then we just save this one. All right, then now I'm going to edit this one, but you're going to click new goal again. So you do new goal and you'll get to this page. I'm just going to edit this one. All right, so you will be on this page here. We click on continue and you will now be on this page and we want to call it visit 3+ pages. So this one I also have as a standard, because if someone has viewed 3 or more pages, they're usually pretty keen. You'll have a reasonable percentage of your visitors will stay for less than a minute and will only look at 1 page. So if they're looking at 2 pages, that's pretty good. But if they're looking at 3 or more pages, that they're actually pretty keen. So we want to do greater than 2 to get 3 or more. Greater than 2. All right, again, skip the value and click save. All right. So that's quite a short one. Now, I strongly recommend having these goals filled out based on what's actually on your website. So how about, I'll just give you an example of what the type of detail that you really should have in your goals. So let's go to, actually, let's just look at this page here. All right, so let's go back to where we were. Now, if I was setting up analytics for this, first of all, I would want to know the conversion rate of people clicking on this button. So, and then there's a couple of options you've got. So you could have, see, people could click on that button, but they haven't inputted anything. So you can have people that are clicking on the button, but then you can also have valid submit. And I quite often track both, because sometimes clients want to know, particularly, look, not so much for a form like this, but if you have a form that has lots of different steps and they're asking for a phone number and then asking for an address and they're asking for messages and details and all that type of thing, you're going to have some percentage of people will fill out some of it, and then they'll get an error saying, you know, they've missed out one of the required fields and they'll leave. So when I see that, I like to have one goal for clicking on the button, so just clicking on it, and one for validly submitting the form. All right, so let's, I've got too many email, no, that's the old one. Too many email addresses. All right, so then I would want to track a valid submission of the form. Now, if I was tracking this, then one thing that would be interesting to see would be people clicking on the tabs to open lessons, so we can find out what the interaction rate is on different lessons. Now, another thing that I like to track is the interaction rate overall. So I will set up a little, basically what it does is it's tracking mouse movements and it's tracking, oh, look, you've got like me and me, that's just weird. It'll be tracking mouse movements and it'll be tracking scrolling. And every 15 seconds it says, all right, is someone still active? And if they're still active, then it just marks them as engaged. And then I'll track different engagement levels in there as well. Another thing that we might want to track is whether someone clicked video. I'm not going to click on it because that's just going to be even weirder if I'm talking and that's going to be strange. But if someone's clicking on videos and watching videos, you can actually track them if they're YouTube videos. I might want to track someone searching. I might want to track, is someone emailing support or are they clicking through to my homepage? So all of those different things are trackable, and what we would want to do for all of those things is set them up as separate goals, and then where you are, so there's different ways that you can use that, but basically, to be honest, I spend a lot of time looking at events, which aren't a big part of this course, but when you do have events coming through, I think this particular client does have some events, you can, I usually actually export all the data out of Google Analytics and put it in Data Studio. So maybe that's not the best example, but actually, all right, let's just do acquisition because I know that acquisition has the conversion rates straight in there. So I'll just pick panels. All right, so we've got e-commerce as our standard one, but any of the individual goals can be adjusted in here to see the actual conversion rates. Now, there's a lot more that you can do with goals than that. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. I usually convert different goals into dashboards and reports showing progress through pipelines as well, sales pipelines, so that you can actually see the progress of that goal. And it's also really useful to look at goal conversion based on different segments of traffic in your analytics as well. So all of that is a bit more advanced. We're not going to be going through it in this course, but certainly having the goals in there is the first step before you can actually start to see what is and isn't effective. Definitely things like purchasing or booking, or like those really macro goals, you want to have them in here. Otherwise you won't know. So if you have like Google Ads, for example, you won't know which campaigns are leading to the actual conversions if you don't have conversions, if you don't have goals. And typically what you would do is you'd set up the goals in here and then you'd import them in Google Ads, so that then you can make sure that your Google Ads are more optimized based on what people are actually doing. You don't want to just have ads for the sake of it. You want to get an actual business benefit from them. Yeah, so if you have any questions for me about Google Ads or any of these things, just give me a hoy. Alrighty, well, I think we have gone through, where did we get up to? Creating standard goals, yeah. So the next lesson we're going to go through is copying those goals that we just created to another view, because sometimes you might want to see them in other views even if you're only using the one view for your reporting. And then the next one is a more advanced topic just for e-commerce, so we'll go through that shortly. Alrighty, well, hopefully that helped you learning about goals, and I will see you in the next lesson.